Well, we do actually have some questions in queue, Jolly, if
Cool.
you have some time here.
I do, yes.
The first one here is sometimes we ask multiple evaluators to rate a project on multiple different criteria. It looks like there isn't a way to do that currently. Example, we want Mary experts to rank a given project on shovel ready, applicable to vital sign, and importance.
Yeah, so that sort of ranking cube, if you want to call it that, where you have multiple evaluators evaluating a single project according to multiple criteria, that is not something that is handled very well at all right now. But the stories that I was mentioning, I do believe would get us there. So you can have, you know, you can establish a group of people who will review a story, and that can include Mary expert as well as others. They would then review a particular project or a set of projects according to many criteria. And so, you know, per project, you would have multiple evaluators, multiple criteria, which results in multiple scores. So, you know, this project X would have for the, I forget the particular shovel ready. For shovel ready, it would have maybe a 1, a 2, a 2, a 3. We would have some way to both see that disaggregated evaluation, right? So you can see what each person voted or ranked for each criterion on each project. But in addition, you would have some way of aggregating those up to like a grand total or a composite score rather than having to ship that out to Excel and do pivots or any other work outside of the system. So there'd be an overall shovel ready rank for project X. Did that answer the question?
I think so. I think we do actually have a related question just regarding the timeline for supporting multiple evaluators. Do you have anything you could add regarding that?
I do not. I think Matt Deniston, who's the product owner, the product manager, sorry, for ProjectFirma, I think he probably has a much better bead on the timeline for that. That said, our development teams have been doing quite a bit more work recently in ProjectFirma on a lot of these sort of mainline features that are beneficial to everyone, and that's both Sitka funded. So Sitka has been kind of doubling down, investing in ProjectFirma with some exciting stuff, but also a lot of client funded stuff. And so I would just have to check with him on. Most of them are in analysis right now, which would lead me to believe that we still need to get funding secured. But once that funding is secured, I expect it would be in the system in pretty short order. I don't think, excuse me, I don't think any of those are particularly heavy lifts. Any other questions?
Matt did. We do have other questions. Matt did confirm that there's no timeline right now, but we need to find a funding source for additional project evaluation features. So he kind of confirmed what you said there.
Cool.
And then we have another question here. This one's from John. He wants to know, are there ways to weight the criteria? For example, some criteria will have a higher importance.
I would say there's no easy way because the weighting of criteria, especially if we're talking about like composite scoring, since we don't composite score, there's actually no kind of multiplication happening. The way you could do that is, let me jump back into the app real quick. And this is me just shooting from the hip, but potentially the way you could do that is you would have, you'd have something like site access weight, right? And you give it a weight of maybe 0.5. And then once you export that sort of thing out of the system and into Excel, you can then apply formulas against the weight column and the value column. And so it's a little bit of a kind of hacky solution. I think what you're asking for, John, is a really good request because ultimately, like we saw with when I exported to Excel, maybe you want to rely the sort of the visual or political aspect maybe way less important than the biological benefit or the logistical challenges. Maybe the logistical challenges can make or break a project, and so you really want to weight those heavily. If there's site access and staging issues, then you don't even know that you're going to be able to do the work, that sort of thing. So you could create a criteria that basically rides along, called weight, and then that might be a potential way to do it. I can play with this more and follow up with you though, John, see if that's a workable solution.
Yeah, Puget Sound also agrees that weighting would be very, very helpful.
Okay, good.
So I have another question here is, would you recommend or discourage a summative criteria that is the overall rating in your example? This came in earlier when you were doing the demo, so you might have to think back. But in other words, make the overall rating more transparent within the system.
Yeah, I mean, so that is also an excellent point. I'm glad I've got experts here. The overall score may not be something you want to do outside of the system, and that is why one of the stories we have is all about kind of coming up with that overall score. One thing you could do to bring it back into the system once you've done all of the math out here, and if you want to use averages or you want to use even fancier formulas, you want to do some sort of multiple rounds of feedback from users outside of the system, you can do all of that, and then when you come back into the system, you would just create an overall rank criteria, right? And that's really what you would use to drive it, and that would just reflect what you had turned off or kind of decided on offline. So the overall score would be 4, you give it rank 1, and the overall rank is what you're really looking at that in that particular project, if that makes sense. And like I said, we have implemented this to kind of meet a really broad range of needs. And as folks get in there and use it and can provide feedback and can help kind of co-discover with us how you want this to work, I think we can really tailor it so that a lot of these workarounds, a lot of the moving it out to Excel for further analysis, I think we can capture that in the system.
All right, thank you. We do have one more question in queue, which I'll ask, but before I do so, I just want to let the attendees know that we are recording today's web training. I will be sharing that with everyone following in a day or two with links to the recording. We will also be adding it to the training page that will be rolled out to the different instances so others can use this. I do think that there's a lot of good feedback, and I could imagine that this new feature could be a great topic point or discussion point at our ProjectFirma user group happening in September. But we do have another one here. This is a question for you, Jolly. In the future, it would be great to evaluate projects against their contribution to performance measures. Could project managers or PMs someday be used to pre-populate criteria?
Prepopulate, I was following until the prepopulate criteria thing. I think it is really interesting if you have planned values for performance measures to have those drive the ranking process, where you're maybe not even manually ranking yourself. The project is ranked for you based on other information available in the system. I can also see that being useful from like a cost efficiency perspective, right? So if you have a proposed budget for a project and then you have some performance measure total, you can get a cost efficiency value that says, you know, we're getting dollars per linear foot of riparian or something. And so you can look at a project and from a financial perspective, get a pretty good feel for, you know, is there an economy of scale? Maybe we want to be doing projects that are really large contiguous things because the economy of scale there is, you know, we're down to, you know, $3 a linear foot as composed to like $50 a linear foot, something like that. So I think that's a really good thing to be thinking about, and that could be really cool future functionality for sure.
Okay, if there's any additional questions, I don't have any in queue. So with that, I guess what we will do is we will end today's web training. Thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Jolly, for taking the time to share this information.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if there is, I think, probably just revisit it. If there is anyone who would like to add project evaluations, get it turned on, we'd love to, do reach out to us and we can add it to your instance and go from there.
Cool. Thanks, Damien. Thank you so much, everyone.